If you look at the next 12 months, there are some things on the agenda that we need to be more cognizant about. The first one is nature and nature-based solutions, the planetary boundaries. We've always had a hard time getting our hands around it. That's absolutely a must to get that onto your balance sheet. The second thing is, this is not a reporting obligation I hear so much, or ticking the box. This is an opportunity to see it not as a cost but as an investment, to not see it as a risk but as an opportunity, and to set the targets that are a little bit more stretching.
Patagonia is legally organized around the mission. The mission is, if you will, the owner of the company, and it's about saving the planet. So Patagonia works for the planet. Everything that Patagonia makes, the dividends go directly to an environmental cause. So the purpose is ruling, all the actions and all the thinking of the company. Is a quite unique governance when you think about it. And we hope it will inspire more people and companies around the world to be thinking at the end, who are they ultimately serving? Patagonia has chosen the Earth as the only shareholder, and I think it's inspiring.
Hello and welcome along to this very special episode of the Springwise Future Now podcast, which is also being hosted on the Edie Extra channel. It's the week ending Friday the 3rd of April. You're listening here to Edie's publisher Luke Nichols. I'm joined by Springwise's editor Matt Hempstead, and we have got one hell of an episode to bring you today because Springwise and Edie have gone global. We've taken a Eurostar trip across to Paris to the climate innovation mega event that is ChangeNow. We're stood right now in the centre of the magnificent Grand Palais event hall, about 15 minutes walk from the Eiffel Tower, and we are here on a bit of a mission, not least a mission to share the Springwise Innovation Library and Edie's own corporate offering. For you listeners of this podcast, we're also on a mission to explore the current state of play when it comes to unleashing climate innovation. So brace yourself for a packed episode of Future Now, where we'll be parading through the show floor to speak to some of the most exciting innovations for our planet, discussing how those innovations can effectively be deployed and scaled up by corporates to accelerate the sustainability transition. And we've got two exclusive chats with none other than former Unilever CEO Paul Polman and Patagonia board member Barbara Martin Coppola, who are going to give us some incredibly candid and thought-provoking insights about the future of sustainable business. So much to get through and so little time, so let's get on with the show. Okay, yes, bonjour, hello from ChangeNow here in Paris. It is the afternoon of Monday the 30th of March, the first day of ChangeNow. I'm delighted to be joined here within a bustling Grand Palais. I'm joined here by Springwise editor Matt Hempstead. Matt, hello, how are you finding this so far?
Well, it's absolutely amazing. Just to imagine the ceiling, so we've got this huge glass ceiling on the Grand Palais, and it is putting a great light on a massive exhibition floor here. So I think they say about 40,000 people are expected over ChangeNow over the 3 days, and also 1,000 solutions, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but when you're here you can imagine that it is actually that many. There's all kinds of different theme sections of the show floor, covering everything from circular economy to energy to biodiversity, and each of those has just rows and rows of different startups, non-profits and other solution providers that are all here for one reason really, which is to show their wares really in terms of climate innovation and to be able to make connections here to scale up their technologies, which are all helping to deliver the change we need at scale, which is what ChangeNow is all about, hence the name.
And we are here within ChangeNow, actually sat on a nice sort of Springwise and Edie co-branded stand. So tell us about this kind of the partnership. This is the second year I've been here, but Springwise have been here a few more years than that. So now we're here on a media partner basis as well as just kind of covering it.
Yes, absolutely. So we've been involved in ChangeNow for about 5 years as Springwise, and what we're doing is what we've done the last few years, which is we help them produce their daily summit newsletter. So I've been running around like a madman, going between different sessions, taking notes, speaking to different solutions that are on the show floor to kind of highlight what they're here for at ChangeNow and what they want to get out of it, which all goes into the daily newsletter at the end of the day to all the ChangeNow delegates, which is a a great opportunity for us as Springwise, but also really nice for us to be able to showcase the ideas and the solutions that are the heartbeat of ChangeNow.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing some of that showcasing of those solutions and ideas now. We've got a few interviews lined up for you. So, Matt, on the Eurostar up to the event, I'd seen you'd sent over your notes for this podcast episode, and in your segment you just had the words innovation mosaic written within it. Is that a typo, or are you about to hit us with a kind of is there a plan behind that?
Yeah, there is a plan behind that. So the idea of the mosaic is I wanted to go around to a load of different solutions in quick fire mode. So we get a really broad range of views and ask them basically one simple question, which is what can large organisations, both here at ChangeNow, but also more broadly, thinking about the edie audience there, what can they do to help us scale up? What's the one thing what's the one ask they have of those larger organisations? So we're going to do that in quick fire mode, see how it goes, and you can tell us at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it sounds like it could go either way, that kind of thing, but I've got full faith in you, Matt. Right, now, so just to give our listeners, though, a bit of a glimpse behind the curtain of this episode of Future Now, the plan here was actually to jump straight into that mosaic of interviews, but Matt, I'm going to rain on your parade a little bit because just before we met up, you saw I was stood with none other than Mr. Paul Polman, the former Unilever chief exec and the sustainability stalwart, who's been here speaking on stage, drawing possibly the biggest crowd so far of the entire event. And I managed to grab Paul fresh off stage, podcast mic in hand, for a brief chat, which I thought would be worth us kicking off the show with. So Matt, if you don't mind, I'm going to hijack this first segment of the show and bring you that interview with Paul Polman. So here's that chat that I had with Paul just now in full. So yes, we are here then in the middle of ChangeNow on the middle of day one, exploring this challenge of moving from innovation and sustainability ambitions into real-world deployment and action. And there's arguably no one better to be speaking to about this than the man with me now, Paul Polman. Paul, great to catch you here at ChangeNow. I heard you say on stage that you've been to every one of these events over the years and you just love being here in Paris. So aside from being just here in Paris, what brings you back to this event every year?
Well, indeed, I've been nearly at the 10 ChangeNow conferences, and they're getting better and better, also bigger and bigger, and it's a real movement, and that's what we need right now. There's so many news coming at us that might affect our courage or our determination to do something. And you walk around here, you see amazing people doing amazing things, and frankly, selfishly, I might give a little bit and be part of the panels, but I also get a lot of new ideas. And here you have the whole value chain. You have innovators, you have scalers, you have bigger companies, smaller companies, civil society, and at the end of the day, it is about working together, and increasingly I see that happening in platforms like this, so I want to encourage everybody to leverage that and hopefully make it bigger year after year.
And as you say, I mean, just looking around the event here, there's one thing that's kind of an easy takeaway immediately is we're not short of solutions, and the innovations and solutions are here already. So when it comes to kind of scaling these solutions up, what do you think the real kind of bottleneck is?
Well, look, I've always said we have more awareness of what's happening in this world than we've ever had. We have more technologies to deal with it, many actually cheaper to do that. We also have the money. We just spend it on the wrong things, as we are well aware of. So what it really boils down to then is leadership. So there are probably three things that get in the way. One is ambition. You have to start with the science, and the science is increasingly shouting louder that we need to move faster and think bigger. That's not only climate science, but increasingly we're also understanding better and better the planetary science and what we need to do to stay within these 9 planetary boundaries that the Stockholm Resilience Institute talks about. The second thing we need to do is companies take responsibilities of their total impact. We still see many people narrowly defining victory, not only by setting targets that are less ambitious than what science tells us that is needed, but also by narrowing the scope of what they think they're responsible for. If you're really a net positive company, you look at your total impact in the world. And the third thing that we're talking about here is the issues that we're facing are so big that nobody can do it alone anymore. So we have to form these smart partnerships to accelerate. And there are many opportunities to do that. Obviously, advocating around the Paris Agreement and the science, looking at the perverse subsidies that are still in the system, that really push us in the wrong direction. working with governments ultimately to get the right policies in place to help us. Difficult in this environment, but let's do it with the coalitions of the willing. And then companies themselves, as we work on these changes and implement them, be sure that the companies move to what I call positive advocacy versus negative lobbying. There's still too much nonsense going on in the trade associations, or people talking one thing and then acting another way, and that's catching up on us. Trust is low. People in organizations don't see the moral leaders they're expecting. So there is a behavior part that we should not underestimate.
Yeah, you mentioned like the environment in which we're operating at the moment, and it's hard to ignore that kind of agenda that might be out there at the moment. We hosted our own big event, edie 26, just last week, and what was nice about that event is there was a sense of this maybe being the latest wave of sustainability, and we might be facing hopefully another kind of fresh wave of positivity and action incoming. I guess my question for you is, how can companies and sustainability leaders accelerate this next wave if it is coming? How do we kind of make sure that this anti-agenda, as it were, isn't taking over this kind of conversation?
Well, we don't, first of all, want to be naive about this, and nor do we want to be pessimistic. But just to say it's another wave and it's the last symbols of a transition would be overly simplified. The world is a mess. Let's not kid ourselves. The issues that we're facing are too big for any of us to do alone. We need governments to work in the right direction and take responsibility. As you see how many governments put in serious targets that reflect the Paris Agreement, or work on the Biodiversity Convention and come in, or are willing to get the plastic agreements, or treat the oceans with respect, we are far from where we need to be, and that's a big challenge. A tall order for civil society and a tall order for business. So I don't want to be the party pooper here, to be honest, but you have to be realistic. So undoubtedly there's a setback that we are seeing. It's not only in the US, it's also in Europe and some other places. And that setback is coming probably also from a little bit of a self-inflicted wound. There were a lot of companies greenwashing or talking the talk but not walking the walk. And that's still happening in some quarters. If you see that only a small fraction of companies have truly science-aligned glide paths in line with Paris, or barely integrate the risks of nature-based solutions, which are much bigger than climate alone, we have a job to do, and we have to be realizing that. The second thing is, it is also not unexpected that as a transition happens, the vested order is pushing back. And we're seeing that happening everywhere, basically financed by the fossil fuel industry. They pay a president about $2 billion to get elected. That money is a counterparty for something. And we're seeing that happening very heavily. And that's obviously something that we're up against, that frankly, you cannot say it's the last signals that will go away. What we need to do, the third thing is to first and foremost drive on the momentum where it is, which is really driven by geopolitical tension now. It's driven by cost curves. It's driven by acceleration of technology, which for 50-60% of the things we need to do make it actually cheaper now. So let's build on that momentum. Let's get the people of this world behind it by making it more human. Let's talk not what science tells us to do, but what it does for people. It's very important to get them behind us. And then let's create what I talked about, these collective actions at scale now. Not anymore being competitive leaders, but being cooperative leaders. When it gets to the future of humanity, we better work together. We shouldn't be competing. And there's still too much going on there.
Really interesting, and that actually leads into my last question really, which is for the listener of this podcast that might be a head of sustainability or a head of climate and innovation, as I just spoke to earlier on, for a large company, what would you look to do differently over the next 12 months?
So first of all, thanks for what you are doing. I've always been a heavy supporter of your platforms, and I read everything that comes out and enjoy how you bring people together, but also how you lift their standards. And that's obviously something we all need. If you look at the next 12 months, there are some things on the agenda that we need to be more cognizant about. The first one is nature and nature-based solutions, the planetary boundaries. We've always had a hard time getting our hands around it. That's absolutely a must to get that onto your balance sheet and to internalize that. Work with your boards to do that, set targets around that. It's a much bigger issue than climate alone. The second thing is, this is not a reporting obligation I hear so much, or ticking the box. This is an opportunity to see it not as a cost but as an investment, to not see it as a risk but as an opportunity, and to set the targets that are a little bit more stretching. I now hear that many of the leaders are rather silent than that they set ambitious targets, and it's incredible if you do a lot of good things and you're silent about that. And that space is all given to the opposition. And silence is a choice. And if the opposition then occupies that space and we're moving goalposts, we all become complicit to that. And that's not a good thing. And then the third thing is really use your time now also to make your voices heard in advocacy with governments. There is a group of governments that are willing to move, but we still have enormous perforce subsidies. $1.8 trillion of subsidies for governments destroying nature. Businesses spending $5 trillion in the wrong direction. So work together with the coalitions of the willing to get the right frameworks and to get the right policies in place. When people complain to me that omnibus laws is watering down and Brussels is not committed anymore, my first question is, when have you been there last? And what are you doing to help us educate politicians to hopefully keep a certain level of courage in a time when that is under pressure? And the answer is not yet at the sense of urgency that is needed. So here you have the three things, and I think we all can do our bit on that. And to end on a positive note, this is actually the best opportunity for business. I've never seen such a big bifurcation in getting the reward reflected in the market value between businesses that are moving in the right directions and ones that are trailing. Even amongst the climate leaders, the ones that are moving faster amongst the leaders see it better reflected in their stock price. Amongst companies that run the multi-stakeholder models, that take care of their employees, that embrace these technologies to get to this greener, more sustainable future, it's now hard to show that they don't get rewarded for this anymore. So let's not boil the ocean all at once, but let's at least start to accelerate the implementation that also makes sense for your bottom line. Don't be in the graveyard of dinosaurs, because the risk is that the train has left the station. You better accelerate and become part of that leading group, and your shareholders will be happy for it.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. My last question actually that I was going to end with was rather than about the industry and about other people, I wanted to ask about you. Aside from drawing crowds of thousands of people at different events, like including this one, what are you up to now? And tell me a little bit more about Imagine, because I know Imagine you developed several years ago, but it's grown and grown. I'm really interested to hear what's happened next.
Yeah, it's going well. So one of the things we need is leadership as much as the science. You know, at the end of the day, as I said, it's a human issue. Do we have the courage to do what we all know needs to be done? And Imagine is a leadership community for impact, where we look at some of the industries that have the most burning impact on our climate. Think about fashion, think about food, think about tourism and travel, on top of the overall energy transition that you're well familiar with. We bring people together for a period of about 4 days in Oxford, and these are people across the value chain, innovators, scalers, NGOs, governments, and we've as a result created a community of 400 or 500 people now, every year going up by more than 100 people. And these communities have worked on their own inner development as well as what is needed to move these industries forward. And we're seeing an incredible need for that, where people help each other solve the toughest challenges unselfishly. We talk about courageous companies giving more than they take. The Imagine community is an incredibly generous community. People say greed is good, but I tell you, generosity wins always over time, and that's the community we're creating. Then what I do is basically on three areas. I spend my time on bringing industries together to solve the tougher problems. Think about sustainable airline fuel, regenerative agriculture, sustainable fashion, We have 60 companies, 30% of the fashion industry. So I can work on those platforms with my convening power in the private sector. We put money behind that. We've put in about $12 billion of impact funds, and that's going very fast. And these funds are actually performing equal or better than many of the other funds. So I hope that's a catalyzer for change. And then I work on leadership. I chair One Young World. I chair the Valuable 500. I actually work with 865 universities to see how we can change management education, just to be sure that ultimately we have the right people running these businesses or embracing these bigger challenges. And that's, it's a full-time program, but I'm still in the position to do something about this, and long may that last.
Incredible example of what a CEO can go on to do in terms of having positive personal impacts. And as you say, generosity is one of the greatest commodities of all, and I really, really appreciate how generously you've been giving us your time this afternoon, Paul. Thank you very much. I'll let you get back to probably another session here at ChangeNow.
Well, thank you, Luke. I appreciate what you're doing and hope to see each other soon again.
See, I told you that was worth hijacking the start of the episode for. Some really inspiring words there from Paul, as always, and a great shameless plug within there for Edie and Springwise as well. Right, Matt, it's your time to shine. So, for this mosaic of yours, the floor plan around us is absolutely packed. So do you have a plan for how we're going to do this, where we're going to go across the show floor?
So I thought I would cluster it up into a few different topics. So we have circular economy, energy and biodiversity. So I think I'm going to go and try and grab in twos and threes the innovators from those different areas, and I will update you on how that goes.
Sense the nervous excitement about you. Right, Matt, here's the podcast mic then. Over to you.
So as promised, I'm here in the circular economy part of the exhibition floor here at ChangeNow, and I've grabbed my first couple of solutions. So first up we have the Centre for Reuse. What do you guys do?
So we're the first social enterprise and the first reuse center in Slovenia. The solution we're showing now is shipping container turned into small houses, everything done by people with different special needs.
Brilliant. And what's the one thing you need from larger partner organisations that you might meet here at ChangeNow or beyond?
Sales and finances, to be honest. That's the main thing currently. Other things, we'll figure it out.
They are always very important. Thank you very much. And next door I have Catacycle. Welcome guys to the podcast. If you want to just really quickly tell us a bit about your solution, and then I have a question for you afterwards.
Hi, we are doing PET recycling, and we take PET of all shapes, colors and sizes. It goes through our patented process, which is way less in terms of CO2 footprint, and then we create recycled PET, which is very competitive with the virgin materials.
Brilliant. And my one question for you is, what do you want from larger organisations to help, or what do you need from larger organisations to help you scale your solution?
What we need is, I heard yesterday at a pitch, what we need is commitment, but also commitment to hold their commitments from them.
I like that. Commitment to hold their commitments. That's a very good way of putting it. Thank you very much. And I'm going to be going off now to a different part of the show floor. We'll see where I end up. So I've made my way over here to the biodiversity section of the stage now, and I'm here with a couple more innovators who I'm going to ask to introduce themselves. So I'm here with Midrick. What's your solution?
Yeah, we have two solutions. One is we are building a nature digital twin. So it is you can see the future forest, or you can see the disaster simulation on this platform. We actually building this platform using a drone and then sensor data. So this is very accurate, high accuracy. The accuracy is less than 10 centimeters. So
wow.
We can simulate the high accuracy disaster simulation and in future forest, yeah.
Brilliant. And what's the one thing that large organizations could provide as support?
Yeah, actually, this platform can be used for funding for organization for the nature conservation, or big company contribute to the nature conservation, right? But they need to communicate. They need to promote that more effectively. It's very realistic and easy to communicate for people who is interested in the forest management. Yeah, so that's I think I like them to use it. Yeah.
So next door we now have Forest to Fortune. Please tell us a bit about your solution.
Yes, we are agroforesters, and we work with third-party solutions, technology that allows us to have a transparency to turn our tropical natural capital assets, which are trees, into tradable assets, to monitor them and to trade them.
Brilliant. And what do you need? What support from larger organizations would help you to achieve that?
Yes, so what we are looking for is visibility, institutional funding, as well as B2C customers in order to be able to scale.
Thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to go and head off to a different part of the show floor now, so see you in a second. So I'm here at my final port of call, which is the energy section of the exhibition floor, and I'm here with UltraWatt. Tell me a little bit about your solution.
I invent the solution for solarization of the facade. We simply put solar panel on the roof, on the facade. It's very better for acceleration of the transition.
Brilliant. And what do you need from large organizations to help you scale your journey?
We need public visibility and partnership with customers for B2B.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And I'm just going to nip over to next door to Teesk. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Okay, so basically what we do is movable power stations with solar, battery storage, and then light EV infrastructure for micro and light mobility, robots, drones, etc. So we bring the energy to you.
Wonderful, that's always good to hear. So what's the one thing large organizations can do to help you to bring the energy to us?
Collaboration. Large corporations are fantastic at structured approaches. Startups are great at technology innovation. Work together, let's go.
Brilliant. Great way to finish it off. And that's been a very chaotic segment, but hopefully you've got some very exciting invites from the great solutions here at ChangeNow. Back to the studio.
Take a breath, Matt. I think that went remarkably well. A great way to get a flavour of the different mix of innovations we have around us here at ChangeNow and indeed within the Springwise library. What was your favourite?
Well, I don't like to pick favourites amongst the solutions, but I think in terms of an interesting space, I think that whole idea of bringing energy to where people are is really on topic at the moment. So decentralised energy, super important. And I think as well, in terms of the interesting points they made, I really liked the idea of getting companies to commit to commitments. We see so many examples of where large organisations have rolled back on things they'd previously pledged. I think that's a really good takeaway for all of us.
There's a lot of conversation about that on the stages actually I've seen already, focusing on companies that have set out bold commitments and now they have to kind of see through on them, or are they going to have to adjust those commitments? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in that space. Okay, now it's getting late here on the first day of ChangeNow, so I think it's about time that we go and grab some food and recharge for tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be back here to complete the episode with a final interview, which is one I'm really looking forward to, because I've seen on the event program in front of us that just over there on the main stage there's a session all about getting your board on board with sustainability and purpose-led business. And speaking in that session tomorrow morning is Barbara Martin Coppola, who is a really incredible business leader. She was the former Chief Digital Officer of IKEA, also the former Chief Executive of sports retailer Decathlon, and now she's a board member of the great Patagonia, which, as I'm sure all listeners will know, is arguably the pinnacle of true sustainability leadership and purpose-led business leadership. So I'm making it my personal mission to speak with Barbara tomorrow morning for our final interview of the episode. Hopefully that mission will be a success, and that's the next voice you'll hear. So over to future me. Okay, yes. Well, we kept to our promise, and I've managed to find Barbara Martin Coppola, who is the board member at Patagonia, former CEO at Decathlon. Barbara, first of all, tell us about your kind of experience here at ChangeNow and kind of what you've come along here to talk about and what you found out over the last couple of days.
Well, it's a fantastic, energy-driven, wonderful impact community. It gives hope to be here and discover the innovation, the new thinking, the push, the resilience as well of this community to move at large the world and to consider actually the urgency of the situation with the planet.
And from your perspective at Patagonia, obviously you're an industry leader, you're known worldwide as a real leader on sustainability. When it comes to this kind of the topic here that we're all discussing around innovation, corporate climate innovation, what's Patagonia's perspective on that right now? What does sort of leadership look like when it comes to unlocking climate innovation?
Well, Patagonia is legally organized around the mission. The mission is, if you will, the owner of the company, and it's about saving the planet. So Patagonia works for the planet everything that Patagonia makes, the dividends go directly to an environmental cause. So the purpose is ruling, all the actions and all the thinking of the company. Is a quite unique governance when you think about it, and we hope it will inspire more people and companies around the world to be thinking at the end, who are they ultimately serving? Patagonia has chosen the earth as the only shareholder, and I think it's inspiring. With regards to innovation, I'm very bold on circularity. I think is one of the big hopes of actually reinventing a system at the society level on how to consume in a different way. And I see a lot of movement in materials, in refurbishing, in movement actually to reuse instead of bringing new products. So very, very excited. The reception from a societal perspective on circularity is huge. I think we're ready to move at a bigger scale.
And I think what's clear here at this event is that there is no shortage of innovation. The innovations that we need to scale and to reach the targets we need to reach are already here today. So what specific kind of, from a corporate perspective, what are the key enablers when it comes to actually scaling up and embedding the kind of innovations we see here to accelerate the transition? What kind of key steps would you be suggesting for other corporates?
Well, the first thing is to understand that this is not just the right thing to do. It actually makes business sense. The performance of the corporates that are doing the hard work to transition their processes, their material, their business model, pay off. They pay off mid-term, long-term, and they set up a competitive advantage that is actually remarkable to see. So I would encourage, the corporates to actually do the work. It's a fantastic reason to mobilize the internal people to go further, to actually innovate and continue scaling what works. It gives a reason to wake up every day. I think is one of the most important moments in history to actually go and make a difference. There's so many people that are waiting for leadership at the corporations to lead them into collectively doing what is right.
And my final question actually then relates to the investor perspective in all of this and the corporate relationship with investors, innovators obviously requiring investment to scale up their innovations. From your perspective at Patagonia and your prior experience with Decathlon, how can we bridge that gap better between corporate sustainability and investment and the finance community, especially at the moment when the whole kind of concept and topic of sustainability is being a little bit kind of politicized and it can be difficult to maybe unlock and mobilize finance?
Well, I believe when we marry performance and sustainability, that is really the sweet spot. So it's actually leading with things that are improving both the company, but the society and the planet at the same time. The bar is higher, but at the same time is so worth it. And I believe, presenting the evidence around innovation that the three are possible, the money will follow. And I have evidence actually that, presenting the data as well as the leadership and the conviction goes a long way. So not being depressed by the current environment, but on the contrary, having even more strength to go forward and to, push for these business models, because I am convinced that the tide is going to shift back to being bullish about the environment.
Well, that's a really nice positive note to end on, Barbara. Thank you so much for your time. I believe you're going to go off and now meet Paul Polman, who was on our episode earlier. So good luck with that and good luck with your sessions today.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you to Barbara Martin Coppola and to Paul Polman and all of our guests for this bumper episode of Future Now in partnership with the ED Extra podcast. And that, Future Now listeners, is just about a wrap. We are back at the Springwise stand and the conversations are still flowing around us, and we still have a packed third day to attend here tomorrow. Matt, anything in particular you're looking forward to apart from a good night's rest tonight?
So tomorrow I'm going to be doing a couple of sessions, but also I'm going to be going to a comedy club in the afternoon, which I'm looking forward to. It's sustainability can be very heavy sometimes, so I'm going to enjoy seeing the lighter side of it. There's also the Pitch Awards ceremony, basically be the last thing I do tomorrow. It's always good to see what startups have been recognised, and also to share in that and excitement of them winning the awards. That's always a nice way to end any event, and especially ChangeNow.
Yeah, it's funny, with a 2-day event you kind of feel knackered towards the end of the second day, but I don't know about you, I'm feeling quite exhausted already, but I'm still very much looking forward to a third day. There's some great speakers lined up for tomorrow. But on that note, for the podcast, that brings this very special episode of Springwise Future Now to a close. A huge thanks once again to all of our podcast guests, to Matt, and also to the ChangeNow organisers for inviting us to be a part of this fantastic event. I've absolutely loved the time here and being back on the podcast mic. Matt and Matilda and the edie team will be back with more Springwise and edie podcasts in the very near future. And in the meantime, do make sure you're subscribed to both Springwise Future Now and the edie podcast channel for more innovation and climate action episodes. But for now, here at ChangeNow, it's a goodbye from Matt.
Au revoir.
And it's a goodbye from me. Goodbye.